Just wait until we have some sort of witnesses. You may leave now.
Roderick said, back while looking and sounding very excited about the turn of events. Theodore headed back to the workshop side of building. Since the skis were still bent enough, Theodore thought to take a look at his task list again in order to find any new projects for him to start, while still waiting.
The list had its next step already about surface treatment. Find good enough tar from the storage. All right, Trevor thought, despite him having a little odd feeling about the new instructions. Don't try to get any new messes. Theodore tried to suppress those thoughts and acted like he was instructed. Outside of the workshop walked a woman wearing in her winter clothes a scarf made out of furs from Fox's tail and a silk jacket. She didn't even knock at the door. She was just waiting for something, or specifically, someone. The day was starting to turn into an evening, and our work would end started to get closer minute by minute. Because the significantly lowered amount of customers during the busiest time of the year, less burden would be carried, but that meant for the carpenters a great playground of new ideas and more detail-oriented designs. Suddenly, Roderick decided to give a new specialized order for his men, stating the following. Friends, I want your attention here, because now I have made up a new idea for the weekend. In Sunday, we will hold a meeting at 9 a.m. discussing about our new designs and ideas, in order to organize our attempts with a proper plan and unified picture. Now, keep going for a bit longer, because the clock is ticking. If you feel so, gather up your machinery and materials, and start a cleanup time. The workshop's power nodded back to their leader and decided to slow down their pace for now, so nothing unchangeable would be made before the finalized blueprint. So began the cleanup time. While Theodore was looking for the brush, Roderick interrupted him with a question. What do you think? Do you have time for Sunday's meeting? If not, I'll tell the results you on Monday. I believe I have. All right. Were you looking for the brush? It seems it's already taken. Everyone and everything looked like it was all ready and cleaned. There were still some discussions about the meeting, but it was all otherwise clear what will happen and when. The carpenters started to move away from their job. They said goodbye and left home when the bell rang. The woman who was waiting outside of the workshop turned out to be no other than Lucia Duck herself. She was waiting her father, something that was almost completely out of her kind for all the last years. All the old seniors recognized her and were ready to tell Roderick about Lucia's presence. Roderick heard those shouts and rushed by himself to the scene. What made you come here? Asked Roderick with a tone that was certainly not of his type. He sounded at the same time confused, but also a bit relieved and happy. Didn't have anything else to do, so I came here to see you, all of you. But I don't know. How should I take this? Take it easy. We had finally more relieved and social time. I began to miss it already in school. This unexpected visit really got under Roderick's skin. And while he didn't know anything how to respond to such, the old seniors decided to leave the place. They thought that the family's privacy should be kept as such, and Roderick was easily humiliated when he started to stutter in a big group. Theodore was still gathering his warmer clothes for the outside, and he was not at the present at the moment until Lucia arrived. However, when Theodore finally arrived to the entrance, Lucia immediately catched it on. Hey, Theodore, weren't you? I also want to talk a bit to you, Lucia told to him and whispered something to her father's ear. I'd like to talk a bit in person with him. Is it okay? Roderick nodded to her daughter, and she turned towards Theodore and walked to him. Hey again. I want to talk a bit to you, since there isn't a lot of our age people anymore. What do you think we could meet during the weekend? Theodore almost blushed because of those words. He didn't want to even believe what he heard. Why? Because Theodore has been living under people he was not the most fond of. Elvira was an incredibly jealous and bitter to almost everyone around her. So she was not the ideal mother for someone very socially awkward and an inexperienced child. Simon, while he was still alive, was strict, very thin-skinned, and almost abusive like an impatient teacher. While Theodore tried to impress himself that Simon was just nervous, and so that the way he was. It's out of care, he shrugged and yelled at his son. Theodore kept repeating and repeating. Not only because of the lack of positive atmosphere around home, but also Theodore's lack of knowledge how especially his age group would talk and behave in conversation was alienating for him. And because of his background, he wasn't the most optimistic about being socially attached to someone. The only people Theodore actually felt like he had a mutual respect and trust, a proper connection, were Gustav Creeklake and Roderick Richard Dark. Even you can say all of the Dark's workshop workers to an extent. Still, Theodore looked at Lucia into her eyes and started to recognize a gesture that looked like the question was genuine. Theodore also couldn't help but see Lucia's similar facial features from Roderick, and those comforted him. And so Theodore got his mouth open and replied, "All right. Where and when would you like to have a meeting? I'm all free for this weekend." Theodore got from his mouth. He just couldn't help but smile. Finally, someone still very much unknown person who he had an easy time having a conversation. Just anything after 3 a.m. is fine for my timetables. Or if it's about weekends, any time is just fine. What if we'd see us tomorrow at our villa? Or where your whereabouts? What if? What if I'll come to see you at tomorrow about 10, 11 a.m.? Yes, as long as it's okay to you. Lucia answered to Theodore's suggestion and gave a sweet smile for him. She walked towards her father and they chatted about something Theodore couldn't hear. But he thought that it didn't belong to him if he couldn't hear that, so he also started to prepare his return to home. Approximately 2 steps were taken, and Lucia appeared behind the Trevor and tried to make him stop for a second. What if we'd walk together? Were our homes still on the same path? Yes, they are. Theodore gave an assurance to Lucia's thought. Lucia was the more eager one in conversations, and she was always the one who chose the subject and the first almost every time to put her word on it. Not like Theodore wasn't speaking at all. He was just not the one who was as active as Lucia. Father and Mr. Creeklake still stayed in the workshop because they had matters to still be discussed. Do you know what those matters could be, Theodore? The carpet was taken completely under the Trevor's legs when Lucia used his first name just like that. But that was like Lucia liked him. Illogical, Theodore tried to brush those thoughts away. If she'd shown this form of kindness, she's just like her father. Nothing more. Trevor was trying to get his mind in order to answer the question from Miss Dark anyways. They are planning on preparing a meeting for Sunday about new designs and new looks for our products, if I am concerned. This may get a little bit too personal, so no pressure. But why you started work as a small child in my father's service? I didn't have anything else to do. All we could have done in home was already done, but it wasn't enough to keep ourselves alive. Admirable. Like you said, Father took good and explicit care for you, right? At least he always spoke very highly of you. Since you've seen a lot about our family, why wouldn't you tell me about yours? After those words were said, Theodore was about to blush again, because he was for a rare time the sort of spotlight of attention, something that was almost unthinkable for the boy. He gathered his head and started to speak as much as he wanted. It's complicated. My father has been gone for about 5 years because of an accident that occurred. And because of my mother's worsening health, I have been the head of our household for a while. We have nothing special, just farm owners in this village with some woodlands as well. What else I'd say? Theodore stopped his monologue when he saw that Lucia started to look down and she started sobbing. Is everything all right? Yes, I just thought of your... Theodore realized that he might have mentioned something he shouldn't have. So he got the conversation in short. No need to force an answer if it's too much. Yes, you are right. Think about something else. Theodore's mind started to get puzzled by Lucia's sudden interest in everything. But before he could have think about that deeper, Lucia stopped in her track, like she was waiting for something. Are we seeing us here tomorrow? I have no one else I can open up aside from my family here, especially when it's this close home. If you know how far my friends are, you know what I'm talking about. Do they live in a completely different region? Sounds like it. Yes. Yes, if you wish to put it like that. Now, if I'd wait for you during the morning tomorrow, I can show you a lot of places I know from our lands. Theodore thought it a while until he realized that from this turn on you walk in the Dark's villa. So he nodded quickly to Lucia and said goodbye for her and kept walking. Lucia did the same. Time flies when I had someone speak and discuss about something, Trevor thought when he was causing his own home. The last subject of theirs really seemed to get under skin, given to Lucia's reactions. What might have been so dramatic about family drama that got Lucia almost to cry? Maybe we'll get those answers tomorrow. But in which Theodore had an answer was that the day's surprise would be over, and now he can move on to the forest to hunt even more game. When he arrived at his house, the same pattern repeated itself, and Theodore went to his favorite deer place, which was in the recently renewed piece of forest. It was an open enough place, but still providing enough protection from the cold wind. This place was about 1 kilometer away from the Trevor's house, so having to pick up a full-grown deer's corpse and bringing it to home could cause problems. But challenges were just challenges to be overcome, right? Theodore even thought that he can bring some game with him to tomorrow's visit. It was a set and waiting to be done. Theodore went on his spot, only for at least an hour, because of the darkness. It was already thick and took away a lot of the visibility. At least one deer and call it a day. This time Theodore had his father's old rifle, made up by the most critically acclaimed company of gun manufacturing, Samo. The rifle's model was the classic 84-308 Win, and the lock was made out of Teflon-treated metal. Theodore was starting to get already tired, and because of that, started to shiver a bit despite his thick clothes. Come on now. Just one deer on the most used paths, Theodore repeated to himself it all. His waiting paid off, because through the wind he could hear steps from the right side. Just stand still until the target presents itself. The steps became louder and louder until the deer appeared at sight. A male deer, with its horns holding 6 spikes. Not the most impressive, but just enough. Trevor raised his gun, turned off the safer, scoped, and before his target was able to even spot the danger, it was a shot. After that, the deer ran at full speed away from the situation. Not long, about 15 meters away from the spot Theodore shot the deer, it was dead. Tracking a wounded animal was child's play when the ground was covered with snow. So, Theodore found his prey pretty early on. Theodore took the deer's organs out from it and brought it back home. The young hunter was met with a bit of a surprise when he realized that their storage for hanging corpses was full. No can do, so Theodore grabbed the hare he shot yesterday and replaced it with a deer. Before Theodore left the storage, he took a part from the deer's tenderloins and packed it. After that was done, Theodore took the hare into the house and started to cut it in the kitchen. Elvira was staring at her son for a few seconds like she was angry about something while she was preparing the table for a meal. She opened her mouth for a change and said, I'm going to the market store tomorrow. I'll bring us what I can just get. Theodore realized what her mother was talking about. He finished the hare's cutting, ate his meal that Elvira prepared, brought his wallet and slammed a few pennies on the dining table. He left to the sanitary facility, brushed his teeth, and wished good night for his mother. Elvira stared at those pennies, and even put out a little smile for a while. After a few minutes, she finally responded to her son, and also went to sleep. So ended the 1st of December. A lot happened during the day, and a lot was planned, so they are waiting their fulfillment. To be continued.